All right, so let's look at the urinary system and then the kidney specifically for the anatomy first. Okay, so the urinary system. Basically the urinary system consists of a few things. So hopefully we know we each have two kidneys, one on each side, okay? And these kidneys are connected by these little tubes. These tubes that we call ureters. So here's kidney and kidney, right and left kidney. So we have two ureters, and they end up going into this structure called the bladder. And they go in sort of the back here. Better color than that. I still have to do. So they go in the back into these little holes into the back of the bladder. So those are sort of the entrance holes. Of course, urine is flowing in this direction down to the bladder. And then there's another hole for the exit. And the exit tube, of course, is called the urethra. Okay, and if you look on this thing and you draw little lines from these holes and connect them, it looks like a triangle. And this thing is called the trigone. This area of the holes where the urine comes in and the urine comes out. So I'm going to talk about the anatomy of the kidney. We're going to spend most of our conversation about what's going on within the kidney itself. And then in one video, I guess, will be on how the bladder functions. So the kidney looks like a bean, right? So make it kind of like this. Just like that. And of course we have two of them, one on the right side, one on the left side. Hopefully you remember that there's a little structure, a little guy, a little hat on him up here. Hopefully you remember that's the adrenal gland. We have two of those. And the kidney is surrounded by fibrous tissue, which I'm trying to make here as best that I can. But it's surrounded by fibrous tissue. It's dense, irregular connective tissue. And it's called the capsule. So this thing here is called the renal capsule. And it's dense, irregular connective tissue. Okay, it's surrounded by some fat, that type of thing. This area here, this little indentation into the kidney, this thing is called the hilum. And you should know basically what the hilum is, or have seen the hilum before because there's one in the lung. Okay. So what comes into or out of the hilum? Well, the first thing we want to look at that comes out of the hilum is this guy here. And this thing here is the renal artery. All right, of course, if we have an artery, we're going to have a vein. All right, so we've got a renal vein. The renal artery brings blood into the kidney. It's connected to the aorta, the abdominal aorta. And the renal vein brings blood out of the kidney, go over to the vena cava, the inferior vena cava. The next thing that comes out, or the other thing that comes out of the hilum is this guy. And this is the ureter. So this is going to take actual urine down to the bladder to be excreted from the body. All right, if I slice the kidney in half, just right down the middle, starting where the adrenal gland is all the way down, just slice it right in half. You see some pretty interesting, there's some pretty interesting structures here. And you're gonna notice that the kidney is structured a lot like what we saw in the lymph node. All right. So this outer area right here, up here is the cortex. There's the cortex. So the middle area is the medulla. Okay. And within the medulla, you see little structures. Like if you cut open a kidney, the great thing about the kidney is you can really see this stuff when you're dissecting the kidney. Some things, you dissect, you're like, oh, this is that and this is that, but you can't really, it's hard to visualize it. And in the kidney, it's really obvious and really cool. But it has these like pizza slice looking things that are within it. And these little pizza slices are called pyramids. So these are called the renal pyramids. And inside the pyramids are a bunch of tubes, okay, called tubules. And they run up and down, sort of like this, towards the point of the pizza slice. The pizza slice, take this with a more pointed thing here, but the pizza slice here, the point at the end, is called the renal papillae. Papilla, however you want to call it. And it's like a little nipple, okay? And that's where, once the urine is formed, it's going to drip out of this renal papilla. And it's going to drip out into a structure that's like a little cone thing, like a little funnel cone. So let's try to make that funnel here and one here. And the urine drips into these little funnels, and these little funnel cones have names. It's called a minor calyx. And these minor calyces connect together to form major calyces. So the areas right next to around where they connect are called major calyces, or a major calyx. The major calyx or calyces combine to become this area here. Get a little bit different color. And this area here is called the pelvis. And that's where urine collects and exits through the ureter down to the bladder. Now, of course, the whole kidney is full of blood vessels. And there are blood vessels that run between these little pizza slices, these little pyramids. And these little areas are called columns. So the renal columns. So blood comes into the kidney through the hilum, through the renal artery. It breaks apart into something called segmental arteries, and then it breaks apart again into interlobar arteries and veins, and they go up the columns. And then the columns, those arteries branch off into these little arteries that go across the tops of these pyramids, and they're called arcuate arteries. And then those then separate into cortical radiate arteries. Okay, and then the radiate arteries, that's where the afferent arterioles come off of. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to look more specifically at the little filters that are doing the job in the kidney, and those are what we call the nephrons. So the nephron. And the nephron, there's a million nephron within each kidney, and they're just tubules, okay? And they go into the pyramids from the arcuate arteries that come, or not the arcuate, the radiate arteries that create or start the arterioles, the afferent arterioles that go into the nephron. And it's the nephron that actually does the filtering of the blood. So the next video, we're going to talk specifically about the nephron.